Today, I am excited to bring to the program the incredibly wise Amy Riley. Amy, I am so excited to have you with us today. Thank you for joining the program.
I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to talking with you, Barbara.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking with you as well. You know, when did we meet? Like 5 months ago? Has it even been that long? 5 months ago or 4 months ago? And now you and I see each other like almost everywhere, which is awesome because, you know, I totally enjoy your company and love being around you. But I think we met when Sarah said, "Oh, I have someone for your conference." And I think that's how we met, wasn't it? I think that was it.
Yes. Yeah. And then immediately we're doing things together.
Yeah, all over. So it's been a short time of friendship, but great to know you. And I'm so happy to have you with the program today so you can share a lot of your knowledge, because I know you have a lot of deep experience and a lot of things to share that I think are important today and for the future as well. So looking forward to listening to all of your wisdom today. But let me just give the listeners a little bit more of information about you. So I know you are really focused on, you know, exceptional leaders. You have this keen understanding that people want to follow leaders, and leaders need to understand what it means to have followers and how to build that followership. So you are an international speaker, you're a leadership consultant, you're an author, and you have a book coming out soon. So The Courage of a Leader, How to Inspire, Engage, and Get Extraordinary Results. So those are really exciting things coming down the pipeline. And just, you know, I know you've got some, not only the wisdom, but you have some really practical applications for things that people can do to be successful. And hoping that's what we can touch on some of those things today.
Sure.
So why don't you give us, you know, in a nutshell, a little bit more about you and things that maybe I didn't touch on that you want us to know about you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm gonna go back a ways, but I'm not gonna cover everything. So just kind of cover the highlights, right? Because I thought it might scare you when I say my undergraduate degree.
Oh,
but I do think that's interesting. My undergraduate degree was actually called French Commercial Studies.
Oh,
and what that meant is that I took all the business curriculum, including international business, and I took every French course that the University of Illinois offered. And I was just trying to get my foot in the door of global companies.
Sure.
And I didn't find this world of learning and development until a couple of years later. I was working for a company that used non-trainers to facilitate some of their core curriculum. And they were also doing a field reorganization, reorganizing their sales and service folks. And I loved facilitating the training. And I had all these questions during the reorganization meetings about how are we going to handle this for people? How are we going to transfer territories and the knowledge? How are we going to train these folks? Some of them are independent contractors. What does that mean? What can we do? So the gal who was the corporate trainer at the time and was leading this large-scale change initiative, she took me out to lunch and she says, "Amy, I've been watching you and I hear what you're asking about. I think you want my job." And I said, "I think I do." And so that started me on the leadership and development path. I got my master's in training and development with an emphasis in organization development. And when she left, I did put in for her job and got it. And it was a really exciting time. I was about halfway through my master's curriculum then. So I was able to immediately apply. And then I thought, oh, I found my place in the world, right? It's training and development. But then I realized there's folks that focus on instructional design for online, just presentation skills training, right? There's so many options inside of that. And it took me a couple of L&D leadership roles and then starting my own business and realizing that my niche was leadership development, that I really enjoy developing leaders at all levels.
Great, that's outstanding. You know, it's interesting. I didn't realize we had similarities in our university experience because my undergraduate was international relations and economics and commerce with a French minor. So But don't ask me to speak French now.
We can do the rest of this interview in French.
No. De rien, no. That's all I remember. No, but anyways, and that's fantastic. So you, and again, we have a lot of similarities in our background in developing leaders and focusing on leadership. So I'm always really excited to speak with you. So, you're an accomplished professional, an accomplished woman in the leadership world. Tell us a little bit about your gifts and how you support your clients.
Oh, good. I like this question about gifts. I think we all have gifts to bring in our leadership. And the strengths that I bring are around listening, facilitating, speaking, consulting, meeting people where they're at. Mm-hmm. And I think that my skills can truly have a difference with leaders because of a belief that I hold. And that belief is that one size fits one. I don't think that there's this one size fits everybody in terms of leadership and leadership development. Effective, powerful leaders can look so many different ways, right? You can quietly bring that calm and compassion to every interaction, right? You can foster innovation in every interaction. You can be that charismatic leader that's saying, we are going up this mountain, and you get a bunch of people to follow you. But I think leadership can look so many different ways. So with that belief in mind, I think that I get further with my skills in making a difference to each individual leader, or the leaders I see in audiences or training programs.
Absolutely. All truth, all through. There is no one size fits all when it comes to leadership development. And so that's a really great thought when you think about it, because everyone comes from such a depth of human experience and no one has the same human experience. So there's no way one program will ever fit every leader. So you also, these days, oh my gosh, from the time we met till today, life has completely flipped around for us. That's for darn sure.
Totally.
Yeah. And based on this unique environment that we're in right now, what advice and counsel do you have for leaders?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I have two things to say about it. One is kind of like, I'd say that the same things that have always been important about leadership are important, right? They're just being highlighted in a different way. I think these circumstances are having us see the deficiencies and the strengths in the leaders around us. But to offer something specific, what I keep coming to is a practice of self-awareness.
Sure.
I think it's a foundation for authentic leadership, right? Really being who we are and bringing our unique gifts to bear in every interaction, project, team that we're a part of. It's also a foundation for emotional intelligence and being able to choose, knowing what's going on with us so we can choose how do we want to respond in a situation, how do we want to interact with others to have it be most effective. And I also think it's some straightforward advice for right now, because there's a lot of resources and ideas coming at us. And I think many leaders are overwhelmed by their work life or their home life or managing both of these inside of the same four walls. Yeah. We need something simple. And I think if we can just check in with ourselves a few times a day, how am I doing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And label our emotions, right? So that there's a little bit of distance, not like I'm a stressed out, overwhelmed person, but I'm feeling stressed out. I'm feeling overwhelmed in this moment. What do I want to choose to do about that?
Sure.
Engaging in some activities that maybe up our energy. I'm playing more music throughout the day than I used to, Barbara, just to I need something. I need a little pick me up, because there's real distressing stuff going on these days.
A lot of music, a lot of walks, but when you go back to leadership and during these unique times, it's really interesting. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you used to listen to leaders speak, they were always talking about earnings and quarterly earnings and profit and loss statements. And it's been just beautifully quiet because I think leaders now are so focused on what they should be focused on all the time, which is, you know, focusing on their employees, how to rapidly advance and accelerate maybe certain projects within their business so that they can compete differently. So it's been a really interesting time and almost a real beautiful time for them to do a lot of the things that you're talking about right now, because there seems to be a lot less pressure on quote quarterly earnings and more focus on let's figure this out together so that we can survive and advance our business.
I love what you're saying. Like, we get to focus on each other. And we are actually literally inviting each other into our homes, right? This is the corner of my bedroom.
Yeah.
Because there's kids and a spouse, and we're spread out throughout the house doing our working and schooling from home, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a unique opportunity to connect with each other as humans. Like, how are you doing? Right? How's it going living by yourself, or living with that 3-year-old and that 5-year-old at home while you're trying to get some work done? It's a great time to really give each other attention, which should be a big part of leadership always.
Well, it's funny because if you think back to the 80s, the 70s, the 80s, and the early 90s, you used to hear from leaders all the time, you leave your personal stuff at the door. When you walk in the door, it's all business. And it used to drive me nuts because I would never understand how you can just drop your personal life and walk in the door. Well, it used to be, now we had phones, so we'd bring our personal life with us through our mobile devices. But now, as you said, we're all within our homes. So now we're seeing kids and interruptions, and dogs are barking, and the doorbell is going off. So we've gotten really personal in a really accepting way to say, hey, this is how we live and this is it. So it's going to have some impact on leadership and how leaders relate to people. I think that you're right. It's that whole, we now understand relationships in a whole different way, don't we?
Yes. Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see the full impact.
Yeah. It's great though. I'm excited for it.
So
tell me a little bit. So leadership, how do you define leadership?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a core belief here for me is that we're all leaders, right? We're all leaders in our lives, and whether we have a manager or a leader title specifically, again, I believe we're all leaders and we can all show up. And I think leadership is about knowing what our unique gifts are, and then paying attention to the circumstances and the situations that we're in. And how can I bring my gifts, my leadership, to have a positive, intentional impact on what's going on? That's a broad definition.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. As I'm listening to you speak, I'm thinking about influences. As leaders, we have influences. And I think that as people, we have experiences that influence how we believe in ourselves and how it impacts how we lead others. And I know I'm a marathon finisher, and preparing for a marathon and finishing it has had tremendous impact on how I see myself, considering the fact I did it in my 50s and I didn't run up till that point. I hated running, but to do something that you never thought you could do. And I know you're an Ironman finisher, which that is insane. That's like a marathon person on steroids, and that's just incredible. It's such a huge accomplishment. There's a lot that you learned preparing for and competing, and I know you had a lot of struggles finally to get to the Ironman finisher line. How have those experiences influenced how you look at yourself as a leader or how you lead others?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Barbara. And yeah, I know you've heard my Ironman finisher story. And I love telling that story, not just because it has a happy ending, but also because it has the struggles and the failures along the way. And and it's not that I want it to be an inspiring story for folks, because I'm not an elite athlete, right? I'm a regular middle of the pack marathoner, right? And when I signed up for Ironman, I hadn't done any swimming, I hadn't done any cycling. So I like sharing that you can do
Yeah.
more than you think that you can do.
Yeah.
And what did that, how has it shaped me, impacted me? I think a lot around resilience. I think of myself, Barbara, as a pretty detailed oriented person, good at logistics, good at organization. And that Ironman training really stretched me in those areas, and somewhere where I thought I was pretty above average.
Right.
And I'd show up to the gym to cycle and I didn't have my cycling shoes. Right? Or you go to get dressed for the rest of the day, you have no socks.
Yeah.
And, you figure it out. I mean, because sometimes I didn't have time to loop back home.
Yeah.
Right? So what do I do instead? Do I do my cycling workout on a different kind of bike? Do I run more today and shift the cycling workout till later? You figure it out, and your definition of what is truly a problem shifts.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is not a problem. There's other options. And also, so resilience and that creative thinking.
Sure.
Right? Okay, so here's what is. Now, what am I going to do? What are the options? Let's start exploring.
Yeah, so a lot of problem solving, or shifting, not getting freaked out because you have to shift something, which I think is a really important quality for all leaders because they face having to shift all the time. And those
a lot of shifting, pivoting going on right now.
All the time. If they can't, those are the leaders that won't survive this. That's for sure. For sure. So what's a quality that you see in all leaders that you believe makes them amazing, successful leaders?
Yeah, I would think, because of my belief that everybody has gifts and everybody has their own leadership style and their own purpose to step into. I think I'm impressed. I think it's effective when people have declared that for themselves. They know what their gifts are. They know what they're committed to in terms of their leadership, right? I call it a leadership legacy, right? Like what is the aspiration of what you want to create or how you want to be known, the kind of impact that you want to have everywhere that you show up. And when you're committed to that bigger picture purpose, then you're not falling victim to your own ego, or you're getting over those normal human considerations and acting bigger than yourself and really making that difference that you've said that you want to make in the world.
It seems like ego seems to be a big stumbling block for a lot of leaders, and you have to have some ego to be willing to take on some of these roles that you take on. What are some of the ways that you help leaders see their egos maybe getting in the way? I'm sure you've dealt with that a lot.
Yeah. Well, one is talking about that balance between confidence and humility, right? And also talking about, if you truly want to get others' engagement and commitment and the followership and involvement that you need in order to make your ideas happen, you need to appeal to both people's heads and their hearts. And a clear and compelling message can appeal to people's heads, right? What are you up to? Why are you up to it? People can get that at a mental level. But how are you going to get their heart and their passion? You need to show some vulnerability, right? And if we're willing to show vulnerability, that starts to scoot that ego out of there. Like if we're willing to say, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, here's where I need your help, right? That's going to engage people, and that has the leader doing and saying and engaging in the ways that he or she need to in order to make that bigger picture purpose happen.
So do you think that leaders, because we hear the word vulnerability, and it used to be that word often it represents weakness. And leaders don't like to be weak. But are you finding that leaders are really coming to understand that vulnerability is a powerful skill to have?
I am. I find this really reassuring. As I'm in the process of writing the Courage of a Leader book, I've been interviewing executives,
Mhm.
C-level folks, founders, presidents, executive directors, and with every single one of them, Barbara, because I've checked,
Mhm.
they've all mentioned one or two ways that they show vulnerability. They might not have called it vulnerability, but they talked about admitting to their mistakes. They talked about saying, I don't know how we're going to get there, people, but this is what we're up to, and I need your best ideas, and I need your best work. They all mentioned ways of showing vulnerability, because it's not just vulnerability for vulnerability's sake. I just
Right.
don't show up and tell you all of my childhood drama. No, but it's about, like, yeah, how do we show up authentically in the moment? What can we add into the situation and show up as our full authentic human selves?
Yeah, the human, right? That human self, absolutely. So you've spoken to a lot of leaders. Obviously, you've worked in leadership for a long time in the industry and discipline of leadership. Is there a leader that you admire above all others?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I get it a lot, and it's honestly it's a hard one for me, because I do have this belief that leadership can look so many different ways,
Mhm.
right? So, yeah, I admire this one for these reasons, this one for these reasons. If you made me choose, who comes to mind is Chuck Robbins. He is the CEO of Cisco Systems right now, and I've had the opportunity to work with leaders throughout Cisco for several years now. And Cisco's going through a transition from hardware, we're selling
Yeah,
products, pieces, right, to software,
yeah,
right, and services and reoccurring revenues. So, I mean, that is a giant organization. And to make that transformation in not only what we're selling, but all of the internal processes and business models and all of that has needed to transform.
yeah.
And to see him, stand in front of Cisco employees and say, here's what we know, here's what we can ground ourselves in, and to talk about guiding principles and behaviors that are important. And to also say, here's what we don't know.
Right.
Here's what we're in the process of figuring out.
Yeah.
And I'm confident we have got really super smart people that
Yeah.
work here, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But he was I've seen him be very transparent
Sure.
in front of his company's employees. And that to me has been inspiring.
Well,
He's very
really,
relatable. Yeah.
it is, and it really engages employees to want to provide that discretionary effort, that they make choices about every day. So I think that's a really good example of a great leader. I was talking to someone the other day, and someone brought up Abe Lincoln. And the reason they
Ah,
talked about Abe Lincoln was because as a leader, when he filled his cabinet with everyone that you could consider either a naysayer to him or an adversary or someone who didn't like him. So he
so
surrounded,
wise.
isn't that amazing?
So
And I thought,
powerful. Yeah.
what an incredible leadership move, and what a sense of confidence in his ability to understand the power of these folks in making things move forward. And I just thought that was a really good example. And when you talk about, the leader of Cisco, there is that element of, being really open and honest about what you need to do, and understanding that you're going to have naysayers, but say, hey, if we want to move forward, we need all of you, right? We really need all of you. So that's a really great example. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your example about Abe Lincoln, because I'm a believer in strengths-based leadership.
Yeah.
Right. So, this is the strengths that this leader brings. And when you surround yourself with complementary strengths,
Yeah.
wow, that leadership team has impact.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, what advice do you have for up and coming leaders?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's actually a question that I ask the executives that I've been interviewing for the book, and I've gotten a, a number of great answers. So I guess it's my turn to answer.
Yeah.
I would say for emerging leaders, declare your leadership legacy. Like, decide, what is this bigger picture purpose that you are fulfilling, and relate to it like, this is a legacy that I can continually create and leave behind. And, some might think, why do that early in your career? Wait, get some experience, and then see what is your unique purpose or your legacy. But I say declare it as soon as possible. And if it's not quite right, that's fine. You'll tweak it, but it will have you living into it in a big way fully. And then you'll more quickly be able to see this part is working, this part's not quite right. I need to shift I need to shift how this shows up. And you'll be playing a bigger game and learning more swiftly.
That's a great, I love that. Because I think you're right. People do say, wait, or I think other leaders tell them, wait. But there's no reason to wait, because some of the greatest leaders have stepped into very unknown situations and been amazing leaders. You just don't know. So why wait, right? I mean,
you can explore different situations, different types of companies, industries, different roles. But I think our leadership legacy transcends all of those different circumstances.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah.
No. Well, we've covered a lot of ground on leadership, and really you shared a lot of really great tips and great ideas and wonderful thoughts about influences on leaders and for leaders to apply. Is there anything that we haven't spoken about that you think is important for us to talk about right now?
Great question. So there is one other thing that I would like to mention, and it's another belief. Those of us in the leadership development world, we probably know the phrase culture eats strategy for breakfast, made well known by Peter Drucker.
Yeah.
Another phrase that I would like to be well known is belief eats behavior for breakfast. And I think sometimes as leaders, we think that we've got to have this complex set of interpersonal behaviors mastered before we can go and deliver a tough message or take on a new business model and lead people in a new direction. But I think we get a better return on our efforts if we're focusing on our beliefs more than our behaviors. Right? If I'm going into a tough conversation and I think he's not going to want to hear this is going to be hard. Right? I don't want to do this. I don't know how this is going to go. If I start with all of those disempowering beliefs, if I'm trying to exhibit the exact right behaviors, it's not going to come through powerfully. But if I do some belief work and I can come to, oh my gosh, he has a lot of experience. He's dealt with messages like this before. He has skills to handle this. I have skills to handle this. We have common ground, right? We're going to be able to work through this. And if we can just take that time, sometimes it can come pretty quick. Sometimes we need to do some more work and reflection. But if we can come with the more empowering, positive, common ground beliefs, then we're going to get a lot further. And if I don't do it, and if a leader doesn't do it exactly perfectly, but they're coming from that empowering mindset, it's going to work. Right? Even if we don't do it exactly perfectly. So I like belief eats behavior for breakfast.
Love it. Love that. Love that. Well, Amy, this has been very just interesting and educational and eye-opening conversation. So thank you for sharing your experience and knowledge with all of us today. I really appreciate it. How would people want to, if they want to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
Oh, that's great. The website is courageofaleader.com. And if you're interested in being notified when the book is available, you can go to the products page. Right at the top is a click here button. Just put in your name and email address, and you'll be notified when the Courage of a Leader book is available.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, the best to you on writing your book and your future book launch. And I know I'm looking forward to getting my copy and reading it. And so thank you for everything today. Do you have any final thoughts for us?
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for putting on your podcast so that we can share information with a broader audience. And this time went by so quickly. Thank you for your insights. It's always fun talking to like-minded folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, Amy, thank you again. And and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too, Barbara.